Things in the West are starting to ramp up again in OWCS. As mentioned yesterday, EMEA just recently concluded their qualifying Swiss stage, and the same applies for North America, aka Toronto Defiant's punching bag. A lot goes on with these things, and not everything is so easily accessible, so if you're looking to get caught up and understand all the big storylines, what's at stake, and who's playing, then you've come to the correct place. Today, I'll be giving you a brief breakdown and preview of the North America group stage and beyond. Let's get to it. First things first, some general information for those of you who need to be caught up or are maybe watching Overwatch esports for the first time. So this event is going to be started on April 12th and will go all the way until April 21st. And in the end, we will have 8 teams move on from 4 different groups to the finals in that main event to decide who gets some of those valuable circuit points and potential prize earnings. Circuit points are the main way of determining the standings in both North America and EMEA based off of your performance in these types of tournaments, and the more that you accumulate, the better odds you have of qualifying for the 2 big main LAN events being held this year, one of which is a Dallas LAN event at the end of next month, as well as DreamHack in Sweden to decide the first ever OWCS champion. Not to mention that this stage in particular is of extra importance as the number of circuit points compared to the previous stage are double, I believe, and the first place finisher automatically goes to Dallas no matter how many circuit points they may have. Here's just a brief update of what the standings are looking like. I threw the EMEA in there as well, just because I forgot to do that in the last video, but essentially a lot of teams from Stage 1 that went on a run are also a part of Stage 2, so doing well or even winning this event could basically set them up for an insurmountable lead to not just qualify for Dallas, but to be in a good spot to make the playoffs later on, and show why they are capable of competing at a global level. In terms of where to watch all this stuff, there's going to be a main broadcast on the Overwatch esports YouTube and Twitch channels as usual, but during the groups, especially the early section of it, they don't play all the games on live broadcast, so I highly recommend checking out other resources like player POVs on Twitch and the Bad Patchy Mario League channel, as they typically stream some of those games live. It's a really helpful tool, and I'll leave a link in the description to that if you're looking to watch a certain game perhaps. Now for a brief breakdown of the Swiss stage and how it went. So here are the top 16 teams from that Swiss that made it onto the group stage. And as you can see at the top, yet again, are a lot of the same suspects. In general, a lot of the same NA teams from stage 1 were able to make it back here, just like in EU. And of course, most notably, number 1 will be Toronto Defiant, aka the stage 1 champs and the ultimate favorites out of this region. Once again, things were very easy for them, unsurprisingly. Only dropping like 1 map along the way to Luminosity and just always staying in control, even against top dogs like Timeless and M80. Speaking of Timeless and M80, they managed to go 2nd and 3rd just where they should be in the North American ladder. This time, we won't have to see these two match up in the group stage right away thanks to a very lopsided Swiss stage standings. These two played each other, Timeless was able to be victorious over them, beating them pretty convincingly, only losing that game to Toronto, showing that they're still very clearly in position to be that number 2 team in NA. Although in this scenario, M80 is probably the more interesting team that we're going to have to keep an eye on, as they are a bit of a new look roster compared to what we saw in Stage 1, replacing Hydron with Happy and getting rid of Lep for Liar. On paper, it feels like this team got better, but these changes only did happen recently, and we'll have to see if they have enough time to seriously gel as a team. Sometimes this stuff can take quite a few weeks, even months to really perfect, so this is going to be a good challenge to see where M80 stands and how much they have to improve. This team is still worse than both Toronto and Timeless right now. They have their work cut out for them, and I have to wonder if making a few replacements will be enough, especially with Happy and Pelican, I'm assuming, still being on high ping for the time being. One step behind them in 5th place, though, is maybe a bit more of an interesting team, an up-and-comer, so to speak. Someone who could play a major spoiler in this type of event, that being FMCL, who are a combination of a couple of different teams. First and foremost, you notice that Seeker is on this team. Hopefully the main playmaker and a guy that can shine. He got screwed over by the NA roster demolition at the last moment during Stage 1, and he ended up having to settle for that LFO team, who were just never going to work together. So hopefully now, on a new, more stable team, with guys that are actually motivated to play with each other, we can see Seeker and the boys succeed. This team isn't like any sort of terrifying world beater, but they've got good talent that demands respect. Alongside Seeker, he has his DPS partner from the previous team, Zera, who showed some good results on Genji and as a flex DPS in general. But then they also have a couple of EU imports in Waymone and Ariel too. They played on Left Right Goodnight during the groups in EMEA Stage 1. I thought they both performed pretty admirably, and this might be a good chance for them to grow and show off more of their potential. The real question's going to come through that backline. The M80 refugees, Lep and Renko. Lep didn't show the greatest results out there on main support. He has a lot to prove. But at the very least, Renko finally gets to play flex support again. It's been a long time coming, and hopefully that means he'll show us some better results. To run through some of the other familiar names, you got the likes of Pirates in Pajamas making it back here again. This team, despite being more so under the radar, pushed Timeless to the limits in the first round during Stage 1 and eliminated that LFO team that I was just mentioning beforehand, and now they have Aniyun added for some extra firepower at support potentially. Then you also have Luminosity making it back again as the 7th place team. I mentioned before they took a map off Toronto, maybe a bit on the rise with this squad with the same exact roster, with that good chemistry and synergy, always a consistent team to be on the lookout for. And how about the likes of Citrus Nation, an up-and-coming team that surprised a lot of people in Stage 1. A lot of guys that were unheard of, that had to prove themselves, and they went out there and did, beating the LFO team early on in the group stage, pushing Luminosity on that Samoa as well that one time. A pretty solid team that isn't going to go super far, but have good synergy, and are showing growth and that motivation to climb the ladder and beat some of these good teams. They're hungry, and they even added in the likes of Lethal to give them more firepower on DPS. As you'll see a bit later, the group they landed in is a bit unfortunate, and it doesn't give them a great chance of advancing through, but at the end of the day, this team earned my respect in the last stage after me not really knowing that much about them, and I'm going to be on the lookout to see if they can show a bit more growth and improvement as we head towards the break. You'll also notice that Students of the Game are making it back. They're a bit of a lower seed, but that may actually work to their advantage based off of the group that they landed in, but they're going with the same exact team. Very easy to cheer for with Rack Attack there, but they did add in Mirror for a bit of extra flexibility at tank. It's not a team to write home about, but they showed they can play with some of the good teams. They can be clutch when it matters. PGE and Scissors are underrated as a damage line. Infected has shown that he's ready to take the reins as one of the best North American tanks. And Rack and Cal are just a solid backline. Students of the Game are one of those teams that despite being a low seed, you have to have a pretty firm belief in to make it to the next portion of the stage. Oh, and shout out to Timeless Nightmare. They're actually coached by a friend of the stream, Hogs. He's been someone who's come into many of my co-streams in the past, so congrats to him and good luck to his guys, as well as Cordal. This is a guy I used to play Xbox with from time to time, so shout out to you, man. I don't know if you're gonna play, but it's sick to see your team make it here. To casually glance through the favorites, it's a lot more straightforward than it is EMEA, where maybe things can kind of change at the top depending on the meta, like with Space Station, Twisted Minds, and Ensign, whatever. But NA, it's just a very obvious food chain, right? Toronto Defiant, they're going to easily get through the groups, and they're probably easily going to make it through and win Stage 2 as well. Their team is just on a way higher level than everybody else as of right now still. There is a tier break between them and the rest of the squad. I'd like to see them get pushed, but I doubt it's going to happen again like we saw in Stage 1, unless this patch can really shake things up big time. It's just a goated roster full of former OWL champions and superstars and players on the rise. There's just nothing to say here. They're flexible, they have the best resources of everybody. It's just too easy out there. Anything less than dominance is a disappointment. Where things are going to maybe, well, hopefully be interesting would be the second and third place teams, Timeless and M80. It's essentially a battle to see who will be the second best in NA right now, and either one of them could take it home. Timeless right now have the clear-cut advantage, thanks to their synergy, the fact that they've played together longer as a unit, they've shown good consistency, they've gotten the better of M80 3 straight times now. They are clearly the favorites to once again be second place. They're in a great position. This is an exciting young team fulfilling their potential, and I think they should continue to do that. Their DPS rotation with Rocket, Sunjun, and Chopper is just so goated. One of the better Tracer players in NA and Rocket. Chopper and Sunjun kind of rotating depending on the situation. It's really great over there. I think from top to bottom, it's a good team. It's not a god tier roster, but it's certainly more than good enough to be one of the best over here. The question's going to be how M80 can adjust, along with a potential patch coming in as well to maybe shake things up even more. We'll have to see how things gel together with a new player like Happy joining the group. He's played on Western teams before that speak English, so that's not much of a problem for him. But how he performs on ping, because I believe that's what's going to happen, is going to be a bit more interesting. And you have Lyra in the mix as well. It's a 5-man team, so not much outside of that. But with 2 new guys coming in, with only a couple of weeks to really practice together, I wonder what their capabilities truly can be. Like, if they are able to piece it together, if they get hot, if Pelican has those out-of-body Tracer experiences yet again on ping, it could be a real problem, and maybe they could give Timeless a real run for their money, or maybe take a map off of Toronto if they're really playing well. Right now in the groups, probably not going to be much of a struggle. It's important for them to play well here. If they do that, that's a good sign, but beyond that, we'll just have to see. Honestly, the most interesting thing of all might be who's playing for that 4th place spot, or who could maybe play spoiler to get into 3rd place. It seems like a couple of teams could be in the running here. We saw Luminosity get 4th in Stage 1, and they very well could make it happen again here. They've got a good advantage over some of these other teams in a couple of aspects. One is they have the star power, the experience, and the veterans as well, but also the synergy. They've been playing together for a while, and some of these other teams are either inexperienced or more so on the new side as they make changes to try and bolster their teams. So Luminosity, just for those facts alone, might be able to sneak into top 4 or maybe even better. Other than that, I'm looking at Pirates in Pajamas, Students of the Game, and maybe even FMCL as teams that could get into that slot. Pirates and Students of the Game are kind of in a similar boat, where they both came up short in a relatively early round during Stage 1, but showed good upset potential and the ability to play up to their competition when it presents itself. Pirates have a lot of flexibility with that backline. I think their DPS players are somewhat underrated as well, and with Students, it's just a well-balanced team that showed they can even push a team like Timeless. I think they're very exciting. They clearly want to continue to play together and improve. I like that they have Mirror as well. Both of these guys are dark horses for sure. The interesting one's going to be FMCL, right? They're in a similar situation to M80, where they've got new team members, they're all trying to work it out together, but these guys even more so, right? You're basically taking 3 separate teams and putting them together. They haven't worked that long together just yet, so maybe they come up short at this point, but you never know. With a guy like Seeker, unless he's playing against a top team, he arguably is the best player in the lobby. There's crazy carry potential there, and now that things are a bit less messy, maybe things will be a bit more favorable for him in a team like this. The groups are going to be a good way to judge where this team is at, and if Seeker ends up having some better luck. Again, we saw his previous team lose to Citrus Nation in the very first round of the groups, so if they can avoid something like that and beat the teams they're supposed to, that's a good way to start on the right foot at least. It's kind of unfortunate that Toronto runs this region and makes what's going to happen in the first place game not all that exciting, since we probably already know the results, but there's more than just one team in professional Overwatch. In NA, in this stage in particular, we're going to see a lot of changes, a bunch of interesting storylines, people changing teams, new teams being created in general. I think there's still a lot to look forward to, and this group stage is going to be a great way to enjoy such a thing. Speaking of the groups, let's take a look at what we've got. So in Group A, it is just Toronto Defiant and a bunch of guys just praying that RNG is on their side. That's the feel of it, at least just knowing that most of these guys are unheard of. Along Toronto in Group B, I'm going to say that Dilducks make it through. 1, they have a hilarious name, but 2, it seems like their roster is pretty decently set up for this type of thing, and based off of the history of the Swiss, it seemed like they're a bit more consistent in their results compared to the other 2, so why not go with them? Doesn't really matter in the end, but congrats on getting this potential spotlight, I guess. This group is really unbalanced, don't know why it's like this. But with Group B, this one's a bit more interesting because you got Luminosity and Timeless, OWCS. Those two should be making it through without too much of an issue. They're both NA powerhouses. We'll get a rematch between these two. The last time they played in Stage 1, it was not particularly close, so hopefully Luminosity can make it more of a game this time. I gotta say, though, it's really unfortunate that Citrus and Daybreak had to be a part of this group. They showed some pretty decent consistency and synergy in Stage 1, and they'd probably be a lot better off if they ended up in Toronto's group. But oh well, hopefully they can get something out of this, and better luck next time, I guess. In Group C, this one is the M80 group. They're making it through no problem, and I think that Pip will ultimately join them just because of the roster and what they showed us during Stage 1, although Shikigami and O3 Splash are interesting adversaries as well, and can maybe give them a bit of a challenge. Pirates, despite being a good challenge for some of the better teams, were rather inconsistent, and we know that O3 Splash has some decent players, and they are a reputable org. Shikigami also made it out of the groups previously, so you never know there. But in the end, I think Pip, with the type of team they have, should be okay. And then in Group D, again, it seems cut and dry. There's no real dramatic results that could happen, probably outside of Group A, but I'm just going with FMCL and Students of the game here. They're just the two best rosters on paper in this group, sadly. Students, they were so capable in Stage 1. There's absolutely no way they choke this early on. FMCL, it'll be interesting to see if they struggle this early on in the groups, just knowing what happened with Seeker's last team. But I think things should be a bit more stable here, and they'll be okay, although I am rooting hardcore for Nightmare rotation for my boy Hogs. I hope they can at least win their game against Vice during that elimination match. And that's kind of my thought process for NA and how the groups go and what I'm looking out for. Honestly, this region is a lot easier to get a grasp on compared to EMEA, where it's just generally more competitive even from like the bottom standpoint. NA, it's just so easy, barring any super crazy circumstances. Hopefully something hilarious or meme-worthy happens, but don't have your expectations too high. That's what I'd say. Let me know your thoughts about OWCS NA Group Stage 2 down in the comments below. What are you on the lookout for? What fun storylines are there? Who are you cheering for? Let me know all your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to stay up to date with all the most recent OWCS news, tournaments, and other Overwatch esports content on this channel, give this video a big fat thumbs up, and of course, subscribe for more. I've been ATP, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.